Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Qapla, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 6, A Spy Humongous. Like a spy among us, except humongous for reasons. So this episode starts off with Captain Freeman telling us in a captain's log that she's been chosen to negotiate peace with the Pakleds. This entire season, the Federation has been at war with the Pakleds. The Pakleds have been repeatedly attacking supply routes. She lands on the Pakled Planet, whose homeworld is named Pakled Planet. And they think she's Captain Janeway. And the first person she speaks to isn't authorized to talk about peace. He says he doesn't have a big enough helmet. Then they're told that a prisoner ran away, and they ran away to her ship. She asks, and yeah, apparently a Pakled made it to the Cerritos and is asking for asylum. And it turns out later he's a spy, blah, blah, blah. Listen, this episode, this is not a great episode. And yeah, there's going to be spoilers. So if I didn't say so, there's spoilers coming. There's just no other way to review this. But basically, some of the previous episodes I was very happy with. Some I was quite angry with. Some I was emotionally stunted, killed, numb to. And with this episode, the overall feeling I get from it is just sad. Sad at the potential. We could have had a pretty decent episode, but to me, it all falls apart. What you're not going to see in this episode, unlike most, are a lot of member berries. And there could have been. There was potential to have them, but there's relatively few. There's still some, but not nearly the amount we got in previous episodes. So the start here is the Lower Decks crew got trash day, or basically they've got to go around and pick up the anomalies that the senior crew have accumulated over the last year. Now, basically it means all these anomalies are going to cause some problem. To Mariner, she calls it the most degrading day of the year. Rutherford is like not sure what to expect. Boimler is really interested in it. He likes it. And Tendi also seems to be really excited about it. As it turns out, in this episode, for why this didn't happen before now, who knows? But Boimler gets the attention of a group of also ensigns, but they call themselves the Red Shirts, kind of like a play on Red Squad. They think of themselves as the best of the best. They all plan to become captains in Starfleet sooner than later. And they say, hey, Boimler, with your experience on the Titan, there's an opening in our group. We could really use you. And, so they want to bring him on board. And Boimler is a little hesitant at first. He looks back at his group of friends, but he decides, yeah, he's in. He wants to be a captain after all. Anyway, and Mariner's upset that He's upset. Mariner's upset that he's brown nosing it with those other people, but he's going to get out of trash day because the red shirts can pull some strings. Now we've got the Pakled spy, and we see that the Tamarian security chief is back. He's on duty. He's with Ransom. They're telling Captain Freeman that he's really more of a spy than a refugee. The problem with one of the reasons that makes this episode sad is that the Pakleds, it was fun as a one-time goof in season 1. It was fun to see a Pakled ship be an actual threat to Starfleet or to the Cerritos. I get it. It was a joke. But now that they have stretched it out to the entire season 2 arc, that the Pakleds are supposedly a real threat to Starfleet, it just doesn't make sense. They are shown to be way too stupid to even be able to fly their own ships, let alone be able to pull off anything like placing a spy aboard the Cerritos or any of the other things we're led to believe they're able to do in this by the time this episode's over. Had they picked a better, had these been Romulans or had they been a new species, which would all have been possible since this all takes place post Star Trek Nemesis, it would have been a lot more believable. It's really starting to hurt that we're packing everything into the Pakleds. Another sad, and we're going to jump ahead here. The positive of this episode is that Mariner is not always the savior. I will grant you she is the savior more than she should be, especially in one of these early times where Rutherford gets sick. He inhales something and he gets really fat. There's no other way of saying it. He gets really fat, like something out of, what's that movie? The Nutty Professor? I mean, crazy plumped fat. And it's a medical condition. So Tendi, the doctor, should be the one to know how to save him. But for some reason, Mariner is the one that knows she have to spread some type of smelling salt on under his nose. Honestly, it looks like blood, but she smears this under his nose. He breathes it in. He returns to normal. Everything goes back. Like, well, why is Mariner getting credit for that? But throughout the rest of the episode, Mariner is getting upset. Mariner's getting angry. Without Boimler there, Mariner becomes the butt of the jokes, if you except that there's no real jokes. It's just she gets angry where Boimler would take it in stride. So Mariner is getting what she's due, to be frank about it. And Boimler is getting a chance to shine. He actually does he does. Now, first, of course, he's slow to warm up to the red shirts. And ultimately, the red shirts turn out to be losers. And he realizes that. And he ends up back with his real friends. But throughout the way, Boimler gets a makeover. They do make him look and feel more confident. He does do a really good captain speech. So Boimler gets a chance to shine. and Mariner gets a chance to get what's coming to her. So those could have been a good episode. If the Pakleds had been replaced with somebody else, we could have had a really great episode. The problem comes at the end. At the very end, and I'm jumping ahead here because it's just not worth going through every single scene. Tendi gets angry while she's holding one cube, one of the many pieces of junk that they have to get rid of. And apparently this cube she's holding amplifies her emotions, and she's getting angry that she volunteered them for this duty of cleaning up all these anomalies. She thought it would be a great day and they'd have a lot of fun, but it turns out every single thing they do, somebody's getting trounced on or eaten or zapped. Mostly Mariner, but Tendi got chewed up and digested by some type of blob alien, and she's had enough. So Tendi goes super angry, and the cube transforms her into this giant scorpion creature. And as she's running amok in the mess hall, and this is where the red shirts come in, and they're like, okay, so Boimler's like, good, now he's going to see them actually in action and do something. And of course, all the red shirts can do is give speeches. And Boimler's like, when are you guys going to actually do something? They're like, we're inspiring the crew. And the first speech kind of inspired the crew, but then after the second, third, and fourth speeches, the crew is shaking their heads. They don't know what to do. Boimler's like, I'm going to actually help solve the problem. And he's figured out it was a whatever cube that caused the problem. So he's trying to figure out the way to undo that. And up to this point, you're like, okay, good. Boimler is going to save the day. And this would have been good. I would have been like very happy for Boimler. Unfortunately, while Boimler still saves the day, it turns out the only way he can save the day is through his own humiliation. So there's 3 or 4 minutes of Boimler literally having to humiliate himself in front of Tendi so that she can laugh her way back to being normal. So he has to pour hot beans on his face. He has to smash a birthday cake into his face and then catch himself on fire from the candles. And then he has to have the replicator cover him in all types of nasty, greasy, smelly foods. And only once he's been thoroughly humiliated for the, billionth time on this series does Tendi ultimately turn back. And she thanks him, and that's nice of her. But Boimler is, he's literally got to humiliate himself in order to save the day. So it kills the entire premise of Boimler being the hero. Now, at least the red shirts kind of disband at this point. Some of the red shirts realize Boimler is actually the true hero, and that it's not all about giving speeches. So there is a little bit of change there. The one guy, of course, white dude who was most in charge of the red shirts, he decides to stay a red shirt. He does get the acting captain's job. It turns out to last like 2 seconds. He's acting captain on the bridge for 2 seconds. It's the best 2 seconds of his life. But then Lieutenant Shax comes in with a shift change and orders him to clean out an airlock. It turns out earlier the airlock was used by the Pakled spy aboard the Cerritos, because the Pakled thought it was a bathroom. And he went to flush the toilet, but he accidentally ejected himself into space. So Shax said a Pakled did unspeakable things to the airlock, and he sends that guy to go clean it. Okay, whatever. So, he got what's coming to him, I guess, but it's like, I've never seen that character before. I really don't care about him. And in fact, being a group of ensigns that really want to be captains, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. It doesn't sound like it sounds very Starfleet. The only thing was that they wanted Boimler to distance themselves from his friends because they all tend to be losers. And let's face it, they do tend to be losers. So, anyway, Captain Freeman and Lieutenant Shax were on the planet most of the time, trying to broker a peace with the Pakleds. They keep calling her Captain Janeway. And it turns out nobody on the Pakled homeworld has a big enough helmet to actually broker peace. First we find the king, then we find the queen. No, first we find the queen, then we find the king, then we find the emperor, and then the Pakleds have a revolution and kill their kings and queens and emperors and decide, oh, now the helmets are no longer going to make a difference until they all look at their big helmets they're holding, and they go right back to the helmet system. It turns out the spy who's wearing Cerritos merchandise, because they took him to the gift shop instead of the warp core and all the secret places he wanted to see. And he survived being shot out in space, by the way. Dr. Tana couldn't explain how he lived. The only thing he said is that Pakleds are strong. So apparently Pakleds can live in the vacuum of space for a few minutes. It turns out that the Pakleds were planning on transporting some type of Veruvian bomb or something to Earth. They didn't give any details, but that was enough information for Captain Freeman to make a report to Starfleet and, become a small hero of her own. So everything seemed to work out. The Pakleds, though, are apparently still a threat. And again, they don't work for me as an enemy. They worked as a joke. They don't work as a real enemy. The Tamarian, he does a couple of his Tamarian phrases, like he just said "shaka." Here they thought they had underestimated the Pakled spy when he got away from them, but then they see him floating out in the vacuum of space, and they said, "Oh, maybe we didn't underestimate him." And the Tamarian's like, "Shaka," and he has some other Tamarian phrase. So he's still talking half Tamarian, which is okay, but he doesn't have a whole lot of lines. So that's about it. The episode ends, of course, with Boimler returning to his friends, with Tendi and Mariner and Rutherford, and Tendi apologizes for volunteering them for the anomaly assignment. But then, of course, they said, no, it is fun. And Boimler basically is making, I don't know, what looks like snow angels in all the food that he covered himself with in the mess hall to get Tendi to turn back. And that's it. The episode ends. It feels like almost like a filler episode. It's disappointing in that it could have been so much more. Excuse me. They did save one somewhat funny thing. They saved one anomaly object. It's a stone that lets them make anonymous calls to random planets. So they use the stone to call the planet where Tasha Yar died. The Artemis or Armis, the tar monster, they call him because apparently, I guess, everybody knows his name. Everybody knows that this planet exists. So they call and they basically, it's like a what's that? Not a collect call. Oh my God. The things people used to do as kids. Fuck. A crank call. A crank call. They place a crank call to this planet, and he doesn't even know where the sound is coming from. And he's like, I am Armis. I control all. And they're Mariner and Tendi and Boimler. You hear all their voices in the background. They just piss him off for 5 minutes, not even, and he just gets angry. The poor guy is alone on a planet. He's been there alone on a planet for centuries before the Enterprise landed there, and he killed Tasha. Yeah, he's an asshole. He killed Tasha. But they did leave him again. They left this guy stranded on a planet all alone. And so the fact that anybody even called him to reach out to him was probably a highlight of his day. So this is the stone, a casting stone. They can broadcast their voice to other planets. So he's like, yeah, prank call Armis, and that's exactly what they do. He says he wishes he had someone to talk to. And they're saying, you look like a big bag of crap, Armis. He's like, I'm Armis. This is my domain. It's like, come and find us, blah, blah, blah. He's like, when I find you, you're going to pay. He's the skin of evil. He falls over himself. It's an embarrassment. It's a sad embarrassment. It could have been a great episode with a few minor changes. Maybe not a great. It could have been a good episode with a few minor changes. Unfortunately, very underwhelming. Very much not what I was looking forward to. I was really hoping to get a good episode this week. We're 6 episodes in now. There's only 7, 8, 9, and 10. There's only 4 episodes left of the season. And I'm giving this... I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. And I think that's being extremely generous. 4 out of 10. I'm sorry. It's just the best I can do. I hope next week we get a better episode. I really do. Keep an eye out. I plan to do some other videos as soon as I'm feeling up to it. I know you guys, some of you know, some of you don't know, I am fighting heart failure, and we've got to change up my meds again. So I don't have the energy I had a few months ago. I apologize. There's so much more I want to do. I do hope once we get my meds right, I'll be able to crack out some more videos. I've got some good ideas. I think you're going to like them once I can get my energy levels back up. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Qapla all. Take care. Bird out.